Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today, we are going to be talking about the Book of Mastery, Paul Selig's newest book. It's the first of a trilogy. And I only have one thing to say to you, Paul. I am here. I am here. I am here.
Oh,
All right. So that's actually a mantra. Or is it a mantra? What would you say? An
they,
attunement?
they call them a claim of truth, and it's also an attunement. Yes.
Ah, okay. So it's a claim of truth.
Uh-huh.
I am here. And the I that's here is my divine self that's here.
That's right. That's right. It's not the small self, it's the claim of the divine self in its full expression. I am here.
Mm,
Here I am.
mm, yes, I am here. Okay. So before we go into the depths of the book, I want for people who aren't familiar with your work, tell me a little bit about. So you channeled this piece of work. And what I love about when you channeled is it's literally someone you're channeling and someone was writing dictation of the book. So this is channeled from whom? And tell us a little bit about the process of creating the book.
My guides dictate the books through me. So the books are actually verbal dictations that are recorded and then transcribed. And it's the unedited transcriptions of the sessions that wind up in book form. The rule has been from the beginning, and this is the fourth book that's happened this way,
Mm-hmm.
is that I can't change things because it's inconvenient or because I don't agree with it or because it doesn't make sense. It winds up in the book regardless. So the process of channeling a book really at this point is that I sit in a chair, I close my eyes, I have two iced coffees on the floor, and I have a friend in Berkeley, California on the phone, and she's the active listener because I really can't channel verbally without somebody being the audience for it.
Mm.
She's the active listener for all the books, and I recede. My consciousness recedes. The guides come forward. They'll repeat one phrase again and again and again until I finally give it voice, and then the rest of the words just tumble out afterwards.
Mm.
And they really don't stop speaking until the channeling is done, until they say
Mm.
stop now, please, which is really the end of the dictation session.
Hmm.
So the book,
And
yeah.
it seems like what the guides are trying to do is they're trying to evolve our consciousness, right? They're trying to give us teaching to help our evolution of consciousness. How does this fit in with, your other books, and how is this helping develop consciousness?
Well, they've actually said that the first three books were foundational for this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the first three books were done. I didn't think there was anything after that. I thought that they had done their job and I would get to go on and have another kind of life and I had
Mm-hmm.
done my duty. And then they said, no, there are more books. And what they say about the Book of Mastery is that, the foundation has really been created. And I feel that what they've done in the first three books, and really to an extent in this book in a different way, is really asked us to comprehend the reality of who we are, to comprehend it, to get it. The book I Am the Word, there's the guides work with encoded language, which are
Mm-hmm.
energetic attunements.
Mm-hmm.
And the attunement in the first book they talked about is the attunement of embodiment,
Mm-hmm.
of bringing the energy in. And in the third book, they talked about the claim of incarnation. I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve, which is sort of the being of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're on to the expression of it, which is I am here, I am here, I am here, as it relates to everything we see before us.
Mm.
Really beginning to work with this whole concept of manifestation through consciousness, but in a radically different way. I mean, the guides are saying that we're actually participatory to our entire landscape. If we can conceive it, if we see it,
Ah, I see.
in relation to it, and how we lift or bring our consciousness to anything that we see is actually informing it. So they're really looking at sort of a remaking of our, I want to say, the world in a strange way. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds so crazily grandiose,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not meant to be. But
Right.
how we perceive our world in collective agreement is the world that we're living in.
Ah, okay.
You
So
see,
let me see if I follow. So the first is like, I actually, I'm embodied in my body. CJ's not floating in the ethers or whatever. She's
yeah,
in her body. And then it's like, hey, I'm actually here for some purpose. right? Conceivably. And
Hmm.
then now that I'm here for purpose. Then it's like, wait a second, I didn't realize I'm a divine self. I'm a co-creator. I have God within myself, and everything I'm doing every day is creating around me.
Yeah.
And that's the big aha, right? To just realize, like, wait, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here in heaven.
It's not, yeah, it's the who is here. It's not I am here. It's not CJ is here or Paul is
No.
here.
Right.
Paul is here at his desk and he wants to lose 30 pounds and he wishes, for this or that to happen. And my small self in my identity has been claiming my reality
Mm-hmm.
pretty effectively,
Right.
but my reality is confirming who I think I am. Do you
Right.
understand this?
Yes.
So everything that I'm choosing is to confirm who I think I am and what I'm supposed to be in the world, which is mostly about inherited structure.
Right.
Now, here's the funny thing. When you claim, and this is what the guides say, the claim, I am here, I am here, I am here, is the divine self as you announcing this. So,
Mm-hmm.
CJ, the personality self, isn't who makes that claim. It's the divine as you. And the resonance of that claim in your field, they say, it expresses as you in your field. And when I do this in workshops, in the books themselves, there's an enormous sort of flush or flood or wave of energy that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they're asking us to do finally is reclaim who, and now they're really stressing what we truly are. So
Mm-hmm.
I can say in sort of conjecture, I'm a divine being because everything is divine and I kind of get it,
Right.
and that's nice when it feels convenient. For me
Right.
to be divine, I'm going to be
Right.
nice and divine. And what they're saying is, it's the divine as you, at that level of consciousness that can perceive at a higher level. And in
Mm-hmm.
that perception, you're actually claiming a new world. They call it the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
which has been their teaching. And they define that, the kingdom, as the awareness of the creator or the divine in all manifestation. Not
Mm.
just the things we like or would agree with that are pretty or sound spiritual, but everything.
Right.
So it's a radical shift,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a radical shift in who is seeing and who is claiming their world into being. That
Right.
making sense?
It does, and I'm mad at it.
Yeah.
I'm mad. Here's why I'm mad. Sometimes I think, well, this seems like the most screwed up design. You're gonna like you come down and you're like, CJ, this eye, the higher eye is gonna come down and you're gonna learn all these lessons. We're not saying all of them are good, but you're gonna have a lesson. You're gonna be designed in a particular way, and then you're gonna come down and forget everything, and then you're gonna have to remember back to whence you came and go back. It just seems messed up. I really don't understand. Sometimes I just get aggravated. Why is this designed this way?
I have no idea. I mean, I think they've talked about it actually in the book, and they do say, that we come here with a list of things we intend to learn.
Yes, I get
How
that.
we learn them is generally up to us. They can say, you can get your lesson. You can choose to learn the lesson in a gutter or in a palace. It's really
Right.
some of this is up to you, but they're
Right.
going to be the same lessons. But I think what they're saying is, if I'm getting this right, and I may have to go to them at some point in this interview, because when anybody asks me a question that I don't have the answer to, I tend to go and
Right.
defer. I think what they're saying is that we have had a collective agreement on this plane for a very, very long time, and that we're operating in an illusion of separation
Mm-hmm.
that we've all agreed to. Now, the divine self, they would say, can never be separate from its source
Mm-hmm.
and knows itself at that level. The personality self is the one who believes itself to be separate. And we do this, frankly, in collusion with everybody else. You
Right.
see, I'm here, you're there, we're different than you,
Right.
and this is how we're going to play this whole thing out. So, my sense is that what we're actually doing is recreating in some way the agreement that we've made to be.
Okay, I
Now,
get that.
yeah.
I don't like it. Like, why give me amnesia? Like, why do I forget
They're saying
everything?
nobody. I'm going to go to them. They're saying nobody gave you amnesia. You agreed to have amnesia. This is the difference here. This is the difference here. Nobody makes you anything. Nobody makes you do anything. You claim your life. You claim your life. You agree to your world. You agree to your world of amnesia. If you don't want amnesia, say wake up. Say wake up. And that is this teaching. And that is this teaching. Stop
No, I'm just aggravated.
what you don't want. That's what I get.
Oh, okay. I get it. I intellectually get it. And like all the little me is like having it's having a tantrum.
Come, I'm doing a workshop in your hood
You
in a
are?
couple of weeks. Yeah, I'm coming
Oh.
out to see. I think I'm going to be in Portland. Maybe I'm not in Seattle this time, but come because if you'll have the experience with it, you see, that's the trippy stuff with this.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually experiential. My intellect, the guides come through with a teaching, and it makes sense. And I battle the teaching on my personal level all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in the vibration of it, you're in a whole other experience of yourself. And what you're getting to do then is you're getting to anchor the vibration in a way
Mm.
that you can know.
Mm.
Now, this is what the guides say, and they've said this from the beginning. I'm a radio, I'm playing a broadcast,
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing through the guides as the radio station, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm tuned into when I'm channeling. But we're all radios and we're always in broadcast. What they do through the books and when they work with people in groups and in these live streams now, what they do is they essentially are supporting everybody in increasing the bandwidth or the
Mm.
station that can be played. And that's what the attunements are doing. They're not mantras to sort of make us feel better. What the guides are saying they're doing with that language, and they say that the language is encoded with vibration, is actually attuning the field to
Mm.
be able to play the higher broadcast, which they say is always present, but we've been precluded from. You
Ah.
know, makes sense. I mean, I'm like a
Yeah.
regular guy. I was a college teacher for 26 years. I don't truly consider myself as necessarily all that advanced spiritually. I've just shown up for this stuff, but I am at this point telepathic. It's what I do in my office all day for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, for whatever reasons, able to close my eyes and dictate entire books that don't need editing, which I
Mm-hmm.
just find insane if I were to
Yeah.
think about it. But it
Right.
happens. But it happens. But this is a result of attunement or alignment.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think I'm
Mm.
all that special. But I do think that one of the things that I do is say, hey, if I can do it, it's possible. And
Mm-hmm.
we live in a world where many things are not possible only because we're agreeing to them as not.
Mm.
Now, I
Mm-hmm.
have the same frustration you do. I want it now. I want to feel better. And I also want all of my small self's needs to be met in the ways that I think that they should,
Right.
so that I can know myself as happy and fulfilled.
Right.
What the guides would say is, your idea of what it means to be happy and fulfilled is also inherited. Somebody told you what it
Right.
means to be happy and fulfilled, and you're creating a life without even knowing who you truly are. So
Mm.
that's the
Mm.
quandary.
All right. Okay.
You're
Okay,
fine.
so I want to hear about your life. Okay, because you have, like you said, and I know you don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to drag you there. All right. So, all right. How have the teachings, because you had said like sometimes you're not even ready for the teachings, but they come to you anyways, and you're like, I don't even understand these, and yet you're asking me to channel these.
Yeah.
So, you had this stuff. It was channeled over a month period. Is that right?
This is about 30 days. It was over a few months, but
Okay.
30
And
days
and,
said.
wh- and when was it that you channeled it?
I began this last book last January, and I
Okay.
think it went through the beginning of March or sometime in March, April, March.
Okay. So
3 months.
January through March, you're kind of living and breathing this stuff. It's been a year.
Yeah.
So what have you done? No, here's my now. Have you integrated these teachings into your life so that they're real and which are the ones that still resonate with your heart, and which are the ones that you go, I still don't get this?
The maintenance of it is still a challenge for me because I have a small self that has a great investment in being who I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll tell you what my passage has been with this, which wasn't a comfortable passage. I heard in July last year that there were new books. And I immediately said, well, that makes no sense because, the Book of Knowing and Worth was the Book of Knowing and Worth was fairly recent,
Right.
and there were new teachings to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, in the next workshop that I ran, there was a new teaching, and it was the
Mm.
teaching of I am here, and it was the
Mm.
first time that they actually used me, where the guides actually sort of step into me. I've been told this; I don't see it myself, but my eyes, which are hazel and rather dark, go bright blue when they
Mm-hmm.
do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at it, they would go around looking at everybody and they'd say, you are here, you are here, you are here. And the people would respond, I am here, I am here, I am here. And what the guide said that they were doing was actually witnessing them as their true self outside of the personality construct. They were
Mm.
witnessing and calling forward the eternal self. So
Mm.
I got that. So, and then they said, when you do this attunement, what you're agreeing to really is that your life will now become your teacher in an accelerated way, that your lessons are going to come to you. So this
Mm-hmm.
is what I went through, and I don't want to make people not read the book as a result of this.
Right.
The apartment building that I lived in Manhattan was sold out from under me, and I was given 8 weeks to move. My dog, who had been my really best companion for 12 years, died very unexpectedly.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I threw my back out the day I moved into a new apartment to the extent that I was unable to walk for a couple of months. I gained weight that I had lost, and I thought that I was done with that. And then I actually got slandered by somebody, and I went,
Oh.
wow, look at this 5 month period. I went, I lost my home, my security, my health, my companionship, and there was a good stab at my reputation that did.
Mm.
But the funny thing was, everything was being challenged that I thought I was and gave me a sense of safety. And
Mm.
there was this teaching that came through, and it's in the book. And it came because the guide said, get ready for your lessons, get ready for your lessons. Um, and they came. They really came kaboom right when they say, Paul, we want to talk about the events of the last several days. It's in the book. Everything had just blown up.
Mm.
And what I got was very, very clearly the divine self or the true self is never afraid. The true self, the divine self, cannot be persecuted because those things don't exist at that level. It's only the personality structure, the body, all of these things that we self identify as can be locked and challenged.
Right.
But the true self can't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on a theoretical level, I go, well, that makes sense, I suppose. But that wasn't my experience of it. And I got to
Wow.
say, I got it.
Right.
I really got it at a whole other level. Now, I'm still attached, I think, to some idea that I should have all the answers because I do this kind of work and I should be, happy and zippy and, and all of my wishes should be true. And perhaps they should be, and perhaps I'm impeding in some way. But when I look at my life now, my life is completely transformed. I mean, I left two academic positions, one of which I'd had for 26 years, the other I'd been at the institution for 20,
Wow.
and in very solid positions, and I actually loved that work. But
Mm-hmm.
I moved it, I let it go. It's who I had been,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
who I was.
Mm.
And the claim, I am here, I am here, I am here, is the divine self seeking its expression as who and what we are, the manifestation of it. So I think that the guides are really taking this out of the theoretical into the practical manifested self.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think I'm the best student of my work? I've always said this. The biggest challenge I have being a channel is that I'm the channel. If you were channeling, I could go, well, let's see what she has to say today. I'll see if I agree with it. I'll be in my discernment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm sort of stuck as, in a way, is being the radio. And the radio really doesn't get to judge the broadcast. I
Mm.
can be effective if I'm doing that. As,
Mm-hmm.
as a conscious channel, what I do is interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, hey, wait a minute, what is this? Or the
Mm-hmm.
guides will say, Paul is interrupting and he's questioning blankety blank.
Mm-hmm.
And then they either have to decide to take up my question or my confusion and clarify it, which hopefully is then clarifying it for the reader. Although I'm
Mm-hmm.
truly not thinking about the reader in that
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, you're in the moment. Yeah.
Well, I said this to you before, but my name is on these books, but I don't perceive myself as the author. In some ways, I feel like the surrogate parent. I mean, they're coming through me, but they're not me
Right.
in a traditional way. So I
Right.
don't have any kind of artistic satisfaction from this at all. I'm just
Right.
amazed that it happened again.
Right. Right.
Shocked, amazed that it happened. But I do feel that because my name is on it, I have to be in my integrity about this work.
Right.
And if it's challenging to me and I'm going, hey, this makes no sense, and they're saying, let us finish, we'll come back to you later, I'll let them finish and come back to me later with the trust that they're going to make the answer known.
Mm-hmm.
What they're teaching now, to me, is fairly far out. Where they've been
Right.
going since the last book, it's getting farther out there, and I'm very challenged by
Right.
it.
Okay,
And
so let's go by some of the ideas because what they're saying. So, I mean, and your experience is just your transformative experience in which you were just pushed over the ledge, frankly, right? I mean, you didn't
yeah,
ask, you didn't like purposely say, hey, it's time for me to move. You know, you clearly
yeah,
wanted your dog around. I mean, all these things just kind of tumbled one after another.
yeah,
And so, how did this. So in the book of mastery, it talks about dealing with fear,
yeah.
dealing with the small self, who's like,
Mhm.
well, what about my companionship? Or wait, what are my friends going to think? Because, I was an NYU professor and now
Yeah.
I'm no longer that. And they'll say, what are you doing? I'm going off to channel stuff. Like, what? Like, how does the small self deal with the fear that ensues after those kind of things happen?
You know, I can't, I miss teaching. I loved it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still teaching in my way when I do
Right.
workshops, but
Yeah.
my guides are doing the bulk of the work. But I loved the classroom. It was a very healthy place. And in some ways, the healthiest part of me was present as a college teacher. I was
Mm-hmm.
good at it and I
Mm-hmm.
liked it, and it was all that stuff. The fear, it's not really about fear. It's more of a sense of being unmoored by traditional structure.
Ah, okay, got it. It's
I,
a
I,
structure.
I had structure. I knew who I was. My benefits were covered. I knew where I was expected to be. I knew what my role was. And I was able to fulfill my role in a way that was gratifying to me.
Ah, okay.
I don't have that anymore. I don't have the
Okay.
luxury of that.
Right.
And I can't say that as a channel, I really have a role. My guides are rather distinct from me when they come through. And I don't sound like them. And they made a distinction for me, which has been helpful. They've said to me, you're not the teacher here, you're an ambassador of the teachings
Right.
when you speak about them.
Right.
And that I can handle because
Right.
I don't want to be a spiritual teacher. I didn't sign up for that. It's
Right.
not my work. Somebody else can have that job. I
Ah.
show up and be present.
Oh, right. So you have the big question of who am I? Because I'm no longer a professor.
Mhm.
I'm an ambassador, but I'm not necessarily the teacher of this work. I'm just the ambassador. So it's kind of you had all these structures. You had a
And
title, you're the professor of NYU, you had all these titles. Now you don't have those structures and culturally defined kind of Paul is normal. We know who he is. He fits in.
yeah,
So you had all that stuff removed. So during that time where you're just saying, I'm here, like what did you what did you do during that time?
I worried. I,
Mm-hmm.
my small self, worried that I was doing the right thing. I'm the kind of guy, just so you know, that if I like a restaurant, I will eat there every night for the rest of my life. I don't like change.
Yes.
I'm not that adventurous.
Right.
And so the fact that I'm traveling around the country now, sort of showing up and talking in this crazy accent and doing this high metaphysical work is a head scratcher to me.
Right.
But there's a quote attributed to Helen Schuckman, who was the channel for A Course in Miracles, which I was never a student of, but she was a Columbia professor, and the quote attributed to her about her work, which I really love, was, "I don't believe it, but I know it's true."
Mm.
And when I'm doing the work, the truth is so present, it's so
Mm.
apparent, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it, and that's a joyous place to be. And when I'm not doing it, I'm going, what's for dinner?
Right.
What's for dinner? Am I in a good hotel?
Right.
Am I going to get my flight upgraded?
Right.
I actually trick myself to go on all these workshop trips by saying, oh, maybe I'll get an upgrade and
Right.
I'll have a good time. Because when I'm channeling the work, I'm essentially, it's physically very challenging for me to do. But I've crawled into the back seat of the car and I'm letting these guys drive,
Right.
except when I do the psychic work. Now, I'm a good psychic. I've developed a good practice. And I didn't even, somebody who didn't even consider himself psychic, but
Mm-hmm.
I have this odd ability as a physical empath, which, if you want to know what's going on with your sister and you give me her name, I can step into your sister. I may start to look like her. I'll
Right.
take on her demeanor and I'll hear her. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll hear the dynamic between you, either at the personality level, at the higher level, or at a time perhaps when a trauma or a problem was created.
Wow.
The guides
Okay.
will say, go to 7 years old. And then
Right.
I'll move to the 7 year old who'll start to tell me stuff.
Wow.
And I like that work because it's provable. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what your sister looks like. I don't know that she hit you over the head with a board when you were 7 years old and has
Mm-hmm.
felt guilty about it ever since, but you have the scar still.
Right.
And you can say, okay, we're here. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That stuff I like, because if that stuff is accurate, that supports me in trusting the transmission of the teaching, because the guides are present for the readings as well. So I do that stuff when I do groups as well, and I like that because I get to be present. It's a bit more creative
Right.
because you're interpreting, and I'm more active as Paul. When I'm
Mm.
channel, I am literally taking dictation. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. And it's
Ah.
like ticker tape. One thing, because if you've seen me work, I whisper the words very, very quickly and then repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awkward to hear. I don't like to watch myself or hear myself. It's easily lampooned if somebody
Mm-hmm.
feels like doing that, but it's just how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people say, "Well, why didn't you channel the right way?" And I go, "Well, what's the right way to channel?" The guides think that's hysterical.
Right.
What's the right way to channel? As if there
Right.
could be one. It's already something other.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
you're right. I don't have the convenience of an identity that's convenient to others anymore.
Well, it sounds like you're formulating it, right? You say ambassador is like one, I'm an ambassador, that's one version. There's I'm a person who works with other people to give them guidance about their own soul. I mean, maybe you're like leading all of us on our soul journey. That's maybe, I don't know. Maybe you're a guide, the Sherpa showing us the way to back to our souls. I don't know.
I hope so. I hope so. I actually think that I know there's something going on at this point. I mean,
Mhm.
there are many, many people working with these texts and their lives are being changed.
Right.
And I'm this befuddled guy some days that's showing up for the work, you know, for the work to come through me. You can't plan a channeling.
Right.
I sit down to do a book chapter not knowing what any of it's going to be about at
Right.
all. You
Okay,
know,
so the teachings talk about changing your structures, and they kind of tell you they do this hand waving sort of to me, which is like, hey, these are structures and manifestations that your small self has created in order for it to feel safe, and
mhm,
they're in some ways illusions because these illusions could actually lead the rest of your life if you
mhm.
continue seeing them, but really there's this divine self that you're kind of missing altogether. But I don't really know. I know that there are like 5 steps, but it wasn't clear to me. Like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, I know I have this small self. I'm CJ. And then there's my divine CJ, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to integrate these two things. And it's hard to dismantle the structures and
I agree.
disengage. So what do I
Oh,
couldn't
but they're
figure out.
they're they're saying something to this, so I should
Okay,
just say it. They're
yeah,
saying
okay,
it's not done by you. Your problem is You think you're the one doing this. The small self can't dismantle. The small self cannot dismantle the small self. She wants to be here. She wants to be here. Only the divine self as you. Only the divine self as you has the power and the purview, has the power and the purview to take this on, to take this on. That is why self-help doesn't work. That is why self-help doesn't work. Self-help is the small self. Self-help is the small self supporting the small self, supporting the small self.
Okay.
And improving her idea of what she should be, of what she should be, the divine as you. The divine as you has the authority, has the authority and the ability to transform life, to transform your life as you align to her, as you align to her. And this is done through choice. And this is done through choice and other word creation of the potential as what you are, the physical whole. The physical holding of vibration and form that seeks to be aligned, in a higher way outside of the small self, outside of what the small self has claimed. You believe yourself to be your body. You believe yourself to be your body, or the life you lived, or the life you lived. These are just shadows, and these are just shadows of what you truly are, and they're underlining the word what.
Okay, got it. So I think I understand that. So the key is, I'm like, my small self is like, I'm going to read all these self-help books to figure it out, right? And it's like, that's not how you're going to do it. The path to reaching it, dismantling, is asking my higher self. And I think you talk about it as going to the altar, right? You go to the altar and say, here, I'm giving this all of you, divine self, please just go figure this out. It's like you hire someone to go figure it out for you, you know? So when you have, how do you then align? Is it just through these statements, I'm here, and you have a whole bunch of different things that you can say, and there's so many different things, I don't even know what to say when. Is there just one thing I can say to align to that divine self?
It's a simple one, and one that they use the most, and it's actually from the third book, although they use it in this one consistently because I guess it works. I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. Now, again, this isn't CJ, the small self, claiming this. It's the divine self. I know who I am as an aspect of the creator, an aspect of the divine. I know what I am in form, in manifested form, and how you serve, or I know how I serve. How one serves is how one is most fully expressed as who and what they are. You understand this. And what the guides say is that calls your frequency into present time, which is the only time that you can know anything. So it brings you back, because most of what we're doing around everything, and myself included, is I'm reacting as I've been taught to react by everything. So I'm always in my history. One of the things the guides say is if you look around the room and everything around you has been given a name by somebody else.
Right.
And you're agreeing to what somebody else is, what somebody else has decided.
Right.
To an extent, our whole encounter with our life is like that. Now, for whatever reason, I'm getting little flags up in the corner of my screen of what your listeners are saying, and
yes.
It's one thing that I didn't explain, which I should, only because when I channel, I whisper the words and repeat them so people hear things twice. And it's a little awkward to listen to. It's just the way the information comes through. Nobody would ever hear it on the whisper, so I have to repeat it.
Okay, that's what it's, because there was a question like, what's happening now is someone possessed, is actually someone entering in your body, which some channelers do, where you hear it whispered, and then you repeat it.
Yeah, I do it that way. I'm a physical medium in a lot of ways. I mean, my eyes change color, things happen. You take on other people's countenance, but I'm present. I'm a conscious channel. I'm not out cold.
Right.
I'm seated. When I'm working like this, it literally is like somebody's beside me, as opposed to when they're dictating a book. And then I'm kind of back there. I'm kind of back there reading a magazine in the back seat.
Right.
Or letting the whole thing happen.
I see. Okay. All right. So going back to, and thank you, listener, for the question. I swear we're going to take the questions at the end. I just want to ask about this alignment thing. So basically, I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is be present and remember I am here, or like I am. What are the three things?
They're saying decide that you have the right to this, first and foremost. First and foremost, you can't claim what you don't believe that you're worthy of. if you believe that you're worthy of alignment, it's on the menu. It's on the menu. You can say, here it is. You can say, here it is. This can be had. This can be had and received by me and received by me. I am allowed to do this. I am allowed to do this.
Ah, okay.
Then alignment can come. If I find it, if you're trying to find it, you're assuming it's elsewhere. You're assuming it's elsewhere from where you are, period. Saying
Oh,
that won't work.
okay. So I have to claim and say, I deserve this. I'm worthy of this. Because
And
even if I say those words, I may be trying to align, but part of my small self is like, but I'm not really worthy of it.
well, that's the book of knowing and worth. They did a
Mm-hmm.
full book on that, and they say, we've been taught that we're not worthy of this, and we've gone into agreement with it.
Mm-hmm.
And religions tell us you need to go to the priest or the rabbi or the shaman or to
Right,
somebody else who's got the answer
right,
for you,
right,
and that's actually not true. That
right,
they talk about the divine self or the aspect of the self. They call it different things. The eternal self. They called it the indwelling Christ, the divine self. There's like names for it all over the
right,
place that mean the same thing.
right.
But it's the aspect of the Creator that is seeking its realization of who and what we are.
Right. Which is
That's
it's and I think actually it's such a disservice because when I realize that one of the things that I've realized recently, and I think I've gotten this right, is that okay, I am my divine self, and so if I'm following my divine self, I'm following me. I always get disturbed by I'm following some white bearded individual in the sky that's outside and separate from me. I'm serving me, the aspect of me that is within me. I don't have to go out and pray to some other person or
well,
yeah,
I would say yes and no. I think
okay,
yes, because I think you find God within,
right,
truthfully. You don't find it on a cliff somewhere, on a cloud somewhere. You do find it within, and that's an old teaching. I mean, the teaching of the kingdom of heaven is within you, is has been around a long time.
mm-hmm,
It's not about seeking it elsewhere. But I feel that that part of us is also connected in a really tangible way to the fullness of Source.
mm-hmm,
And that's where experience begins to transform.
mm-hmm,
And some of the sort of self centeredness of the New Age ideas, which is, it's always happening to me and I'm manifesting all this stuff, that may be so. But what my guides would say is, what part of us is manifesting?
hmm,
So, they say, for example, there's nothing wrong with having the house on the hill. Somebody gets to live there, but
right,
why do you want it? If you want to be the envy of your neighbors, you're creating in fear. You're actually in consort to a whole system of lies. Really,
mm-hmm,
if
mm-hmm,
I'm a worthy person, I have the best house. You
right,
know, we're all of these things that people are saying I should have more this, more that, more that. Why? Because somebody else assumed that that's what we should have, or what we're told by the media to have, or some ascription of what beauty means, or happiness means, or success means. So the divine self, they would say, knows what you need and
mm,
actually call it to you. And
mm,
it's the claim, I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve. It's the divine as you moving into accord with a life.
mm,
Divine self can call forward what you require.
right,
And you're not making these prescriptive actions like, I really want a hot boyfriend with a
right,
great job,
right,
and a fancy car, because that's what somebody should want, which makes no
right,
sense at all. But
right.
we in a culture that affirms that.
Right.
It's
So
completely.
that's again, it's one of the dismantling the structures around us, which we can't really dismantle our culture, but still it's there with a bunch of messages that are pre-programmed, hard-baked when we're
Mhm.
very little, all the way till we grow up to the point that we don't even know that they're hard-baked into our consciousness.
But you can find out that they are
Mm-hmm.
by meeting them there.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I mean, when I was in my early 30s, and I was a real miserable camper, but I was working very, very hard on myself. Now, it's possible that I read this someplace, and I don't know where, and wrote it down, but I'm pretty sure it's the first thing that I actually heard in channel that I didn't really understand, and I wrote it down. And I heard, freedom will come when the throne relinquishes its king. And I didn't know what the hell that meant until about a year or two ago. And then I really got it. When the guide started teaching the kingdom, I got it. They say that the small self rules a small kingdom.
Mm.
It's the kingdom of the small self, which is the world we see that we're agreeing to in a shared construct of what things should be. The
Mm-hmm.
divine self actually operates in a higher dimensional reality
Mm-hmm.
or sees the world before her in a higher way. You actually see the guides say the small self doesn't enter the kingdom. It's not possible. The divine
Mm.
self or the true self does because that's where it already exists.
Mm.
This is a teaching of sort of being manifest as the true self so
Mm-hmm.
that you can bear witness to a world in truth. And
Mm.
say that when you're operating at this level, what you see is then informed in this way. So the small self judges and makes these distinctions of good and bad and right and wrong based on historical constructs or what she's taught.
Mm-hmm.
True self knows, and that's the difference. See, the true self is in her knowing.
Mm. Okay, my
So,
little, my small self is raising my small hand,
sure.
and my small self wants to know. Yeah, but Paul or guides, tell me, I don't understand. So,
Mhm.
what am I supposed to do with my small self? I mean, is my divine self going to still drag my butt to work? What about my mortgage payments? How about my kids? Like, there's this whole egoic structure in which I may decide my divine self. I don't know if my divine self says I shouldn't have it, will it go away? Like your situation, I don't want that. So, what am I supposed to do with this kind of tension between okay, the divine self may want something, right? Your self, Paul self said, I want to stay in this apartment. I want my dog to be alive. I want to keep my job at NYU and the other university. And then the divine said self said, no, we're in alignment, and boom, your life is changed a year later.
Yeah, my life has changed a year later. You know, I wanted the dog to live forever, and that would have been selfish to the dog,
Mm-hmm.
truthfully. And the guide said that like the week before she crossed. I didn't know even know she was sick. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they said that wouldn't be fair to the dog because I made a joke of it in a workshop. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I just want, this is all I want. I want a good partner in my life, and I want my dog to live forever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
well, then the dog was gone in a week, and I'm still single. So go
Mm-hmm.
figure. But the apartment I had outgrown, I'm actually living in a much nicer place than I would have chosen for myself. And I actually have an office now
Mm-hmm.
where I can see clients, which I didn't used to have. So I was given the perfect setup for how my life is now unfolding. It's better than I would have chosen for myself, truthfully.
Mm.
I would have stayed in my overpriced little West Village apartment until I was dead if I could have, because I don't like change.
Right.
So the change was foisted upon me. And truthfully, the other things, my big fear was what you all thought of me. And I got to encounter that last year as
Ah,
well.
because someone
And
called you a fraud or
no, it wasn't
maligned
like
you
that.
or whatever.
It was just a stupid thing. But I went, wow, I don't care. I don't care. And the
Right.
funny thing was, nobody else cared either. Nobody
Mm.
cared. It was like, wow. So, I'm basically a shy person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a rotten person to invite to a party. I'll stand in the corner. I'm okay. I'm a good throwing a party. I'll
Right.
take care of everybody. But so the things that I was confronted with were all moving me out of my comfort zone, every
Ah.
one of them,
Okay.
into a place of growth.
Okay.
Now, the guides sometimes say, this isn't a teaching that's just about being happy, but they define happiness, or I define happiness as I want, a bag of cookies and a good movie on Netflix, and I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, what I'm really saying is comfort. I
Mm-hmm.
equate happiness with my comfort. I want
Mm-hmm.
to maintain my comfort, even if sugar is bad for me, and if I would be much better off dealing with living people as opposed to whatever happens to be on Netflix that night.
Mm-hmm.
Understand this. So I was moved out of my comfort zone, and truthfully, I continue to be moved out of
Mm-hmm.
my comfort zone. And it's not that my life was bad. My life isn't bad now. It's just challenging in different ways.
Okay.
I
So
don't
you
have,
grew, like you grew from
yeah,
you grew from the one year to the next through that experience of shifting all that stuff. So, like, my fear is, oh my gosh, how about if I go someplace I don't want to go? You didn't want to go to any of the places that you were taken, but you can look back and say, hey, I faced one of my worst fears. Actually, all of your
All
worst
of them.
fears, kind
All
of
of them.
all
They
at
were
once.
all my worst fears.
And you're fine.
I was fine. I lost my home. I lost my health. I lost my I mean, it was like, what more? Now, I
Right,
don't think that that has to happen to people. I
right,
really don't.
right.
I think that what I called in for me was what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
truthfully,
Mm-hmm.
to move me forward. And
Right.
I agreed to it. I chose to leave my jobs. They would have been happy to keep me there for probably another 25 years.
Right.
But I knew at a certain level that I was given an opportunity and I needed to say, I'm willing to find out. I'm
Mm.
willing to find out what this all is.
Mm-hmm.
And the guides have asked me, they said, please teach, show up, we'll be there. Show up, we'll be there. So I continue to show up
Mm. Can you talk to the guides through people?
through people. I don't know if I understand that question.
Mm-hmm.
I can tune into people, and the guides will often speak to them.
Mm.
I can tune into my guides, and they will speak
Mm.
through me. Um, but I don't know that I can talk to the guides through other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, what I do as a clairaudient, which is what I do, is hear. And there are different kinds of hearing. So when I'm channeling, the guides are playing through me. I'm tuned into them, and that's the station that's playing. When I tune into somebody else, I'm hearing them or the people that they ask about. I have a pretty facile ability at this point to sort of, plug in. It's like an old switchboard operator with all the different things. I'm just plugging into everybody
Wow.
and hearing the conversations, and then repeating what I hear as it
Mm.
comes.
Mm. Okay, so I have a one quick question about service. We have three
Uh
more
huh.
minutes left, and so um, you're now moving into a different. You've served people through teaching at NYU, and the others. I know there was another college that you taught
Yeah.
at. I can't
Yeah.
remember. So
Mhm.
you've served in that particular way. In what way, now that you've aligned to, and maybe this is the thing that you're saying, I don't know. Now that you've aligned to your divine self, where are you asked to serve? And how do we even know on our, like, how do you know where you're asked to serve? Or are you just kind of seeing where divine leads you to know where you're asked to serve?
Well, I don't think service is necessarily a job description,
Okay.
but I think we confuse that. It can be, perhaps, for some lucky people. But the guides say that how one serves, how anyone serves, is how they're most truly expressed as their divine self or their true
Mm-hmm.
self. That's it. That's how you serve, by being most authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I I don't know where this goes. I still think I'm a teacher, that's the truest part of me, and that part of me gets utilized in what I do now. I know how to hold a space,
Mm-hmm.
but I also, have had. I used to say to my playwriting students at NYU years ago, I'd say, whoever here has felt ashamed or better than everybody or worse than everybody or so angry you could kill, everybody raises their hands to everything. We've all
Right.
felt all this stuff.
Right.
There's no shame in feeling it. But I understand in my own body what it feels like to hold these things. So when I tune into somebody else,
Mm.
I can feel it for them and comprehend it and understand it. They don't have to tell me. I'm the only man that I know of who knows what it's like to feel pregnant. Um,
Mm.
at a hot flash, I gave birth once in a
Wow.
midwife. It's a trip, all of it. But I also know what it's like to, frankly, have tried to kill yourself and not be able to get back in your body
Mm.
because you're in an induced coma.
Right.
I know what it's like to have an amazing array of experiences, and they're all just ways of experiencing oneself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they're ever judged as good or bad. We're all here having this outrageous experience of our humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and divinity is available to us through that as well. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
have our true selves to support us in this. The
Mm-hmm.
guides don't negate our humanity at all, but
Mm-hmm.
they're supporting us in reclaiming a higher way of knowing ourselves.
Mm. Mm. All right. Thank you so much.
You're
Beautiful
welcome.
piece of work. We've been
Thank
talking to Paul Selig about his channel text, the Book of Mastery. Look at all these pages that are flagged. You too can actually read this book and underline everything. Thank you so much for being here.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.